Last of Us Season 2, Episode 3 is now out, and today we are going to talk about this new episode as we are basically still dealing from the aftermath of that particular golfing trip we had last weekend. So let's get right to it. Hello everybody, welcome back to Pop Culture Vortex. I'm your host, Alex Pinto, and well, obviously, last week's episode was quite traumatizing for most fans. I'm sure a lot of people are not happy with what they did. Obviously, spoiler alert, but just for anybody, we are going to be talking spoilers about this episode and in the entirety of this series. So if you have not seen The Last of Us so far, or this new episode, you have been warned. So anyways, last week we had to suffer the death of Joel. Obviously, he was very much beloved. Obviously, this is what happens in the game as well. It was controversial in the game, and well, it's controversial now. So I guess the cycle just repeats itself all over again. Personally, I actually like the way they handled Joel's death better in the series than they did in the game. For me, I actually gave up on the game after that. I think I basically did get through the cutscene of when Tommy talks to Ellie about going after them, telling her to wait, and then he goes off without Ellie, then Ellie has to go after him, And then I remember I played a bit of it, but then after that I was like, nah, I just can't do it. I just never it just never sat well with me, the idea is I have to go on, first of all, I have to go on playing the game as Ellie. I don't mind as Ellie, but then you have to play as Abby, literally the person that kills your favorite character. So yeah, it didn't really sit well with me, so I tapped out of playing the game. I saw clips on YouTube here and there, so I generally know somewhat of what happens in the game and maybe what to expect of this season. I know the ending, so there's that. So yeah, I actually didn't mind. Obviously Raiden Jackson was awesome, so yeah, we're not just dealing with the death of Joel, but we're also dealing with that aftermath. So let's dive right into this episode. What did I think overall? I will admit, this was actually one of my least favorite episodes of the series. It's not a terrible episode, actually. There's actually some really powerful moments in this episode. I just thought it wasn't as strong as it really could have been. That's probably just me, and I'm probably sure there's some people out there who are smarter than me who will probably disagree with me. Maybe some people do agree. There are people who probably hate this episode in general, and probably have tapped out of watching the series after, the golfing trip. So yeah. So you basically start off this episode, obviously, right after when Joel dies. You have the ruins of Jackson. You have the hospital scene with Ellie hallucinating Joel, and you also have that amazing scene where you see Tommy, I guess cleaning up Joel's body, and then he says the words, "Tell Sarah I love her." I think, "Please send Sarah my love," or something like that. He's basically saying, please tell Sarah that I love her and all that. And that was powerful. Obviously, Sarah being Joel's daughter, Tommy's niece. So yeah, that was a very powerful moment. I actually hit you right in the feels. That was so damn good. I really liked it. And then you have the 3-month time jump. Now, actually, just before we talk about the time jump, the intro. So obviously they end off the intro with the two figures, right? Obviously symbolizing Ellie and Joel. But then this time you only had that one figure, only symbolizing Ellie. So that basically makes it definitive Joel's fate. I mean, we already made it. It was already definitive considering they literally had to drag his body out on the snow to make that definitive. But now it's yeah, it is just Ellie. Ellie is no longer with Joel. Now I wonder if they will change that to make it two for the sake of maybe Ellie and Dina, or Ellie and Tommy, whatever. We'll just have to wait and see. But either way, yeah, they made it definitive, with that intro. So you got the 3-month time jump in which then Ellie is finally out of the hospital, but before she gets out, she is approached by Gail, obviously the town therapist, I guess. And she's also the one that was doing a therapy session with Joel. That amazing scene, right, between Joel and Gail. That was, Catherine O'Hara is great. And let's be real, Catherine O'Hara is great in this episode in general. I can't wait to see more of her this season. Now, to tell everybody that Joel, Pedro Pascal is confirmed to be in more episodes. I mean, if you see the trailers, you see some footage that we have not seen yet. So there's going to be flashbacks, all right? We still have that scene where I'm pretty sure like Joel and Gail are having coffee and like they talk about a moth symbolizing death or whatever. So yeah, we still haven't gotten that scene. So like we still have some. So like Pedro Pascal is still in this season. Like this like episode 2 was not the last time you're gonna see him. So I thought for sure we were gonna get flashbacks this episode, but no. This is actually going to be officially the first ever episode without Pedro Pascal, which I guess was the right thing to do because we have to get used to the idea that we're of being without Joel, you know. So I think that was interesting. They made the approach of not having Joel at all. Not even when you had his dead body there. They don't even show his face. So like, yeah, clearly the showrunners want us to get used to not having Joel around for now. And then finally, I guess when they give us those flashbacks, it'll hit us right in the feels. So Gail tries to Gail wants to get some clarity on what did Joel mean by the phrase "I saved her," because obviously they want to talk about like what is it that Joel did to Ellie that might have harmed her, or whatever, like something that he regrets. And all he said was "I saved her," and she doesn't quite understand what that meant. And so she tries to get an understanding out of Ellie, and Ellie just pretty much plays it off like, basically just not directly, but basically just tells Ellie to fuck off, which is a very Ellie thing to do, but she doesn't directly say it, surprisingly, considering it's Ellie. So we go to Ellie, she goes to Joel's house, she's looking around over his stuff and all that, she goes to his jacket, and she's like crying and stuff like that. And look, that was directly out of the game. It was perfectly handled, like it was very emotional. Bella Ramsey, I don't give a fuck what any of y'all say about Bella Ramsey, sorry. She is killing it as Ellie, okay? She's fantastic in the role. I get it. All of you can whine and complain that you wanted Caitlin Dever, who is currently our Abby, to play Ellie, or Kaylee Spaney, the one from Alien Romulus. Yeah, I know. She looks, granted, those two actresses may look like the game, and probably could have done a great job as Ellie, but fact is it went to Bella Ramsey, and for good reason. She is killing it in the role. So yeah, all of you can bitch and complain all you want, but she's fantastic. Now, okay, I'll say this. I understand that maybe there are people who don't really like Bella Ramsey just for the sake of it just doesn't click well with them, and that's okay, but people who are just judging it just because of her looks, and by the way, all of you are saying that because Bella Ramsey isn't attractive enough, keep in mind you're all talking about a 14-year-old girl. So yeah, just bear that in mind, people. Like, especially for the first season / game. Just bear that in mind, guys. So yeah, Bella Ramsey is there. She is fantastic as she's mourning the death of Joel, in which then she's approached by Dina. Dina goes in there. She's kind of offering peace. She's doing a peace offering them cookies. It's quite funny. I like that little like chemistry there. And she confesses that she knows more than what she was leading on these past 3 months, only because she was advised not to give information to Ellie that would probably set her off. And obviously, Ellie's triggered. She's pissed off. But, then, Dina explains to her that their names, their WLF symbol, whatever, and of course that they are probably fireflies. So there's that. And they also have a base in Seattle. So all of that was interesting. I like that they had that moment. And then they go to Tommy. Now, here's where So, in the game, you obviously have that scene between Tommy and Ellie, where, they're obviously having an exchange. Like, basically, they're both kind of talking, kind of processing together. I thought that worked in the game well. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It just did not hit the same for this episode. I don't know. That scene just did not work for me. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I felt like that could have been a way better handled scene. I wish there was more to it. I felt like it could have been more gut-wrenching. I do like that, obviously moments like, don't pretend like you're not the only one, you Joel. Like, he was my brother. I like that moment, but like, I don't know. Felt like it could have had more emotion in it. But I also do like how we're not just only focusing on Ellie and Tommy mourning the death of Joel, but also really the town. To them, they have just lost one of their own. And I like how they have that town meeting of like whether or not do we send people after the guys that killed Joel or not. However, not only are they recovering from Joel's death, they're recovering from Jackson's invasion from the infected. Like, fact is, they lost a lot of people, a lot of manpower. Hence, like, here's the interesting about this scene is that you can't necessarily get mad on either side. You cannot be angry with the town for saying, no, we should not send people after Joel's killers, because if we leave with 16 people, we are defenseless. And you kind of agree with them on that aspect, but at the same time, you know, there's always that thirst for vengeance. So you can't even get mad if whoever wants revenge for Joel, you know, decide to obviously want to go send people over there. So it's like, I like how there's like those both sides of it. You can't really be mad at either one. And of course, Ellie makes her speech, which obviously some of it she was obviously full of shit. That she obviously said, "I don't want this is not for revenge, just for justice." We all know Ellie wants revenge, but you know she cannot say that because obviously she wants to convince the town to send people after, you know, those, you know, Abby and her group. So that happens. However, when it comes to council, they only got 3 votes to send 16 people after Abby's group. Versus, I believe, like, I can't remember how many more, but like I know there was like by a lot that they lost that vote, and ultimately they didn't agree to send people after Abby's group. So there's that. Ellie, of course. No, it's funny because I just go back to the old man that ended up giving them trouble in the New Year's Eve party. I liked his character development a bit, you know, as like obviously he was drunk. He said things he was not proud of. He apologized for it, but he just manned up and said, I did something wrong. I am sorry. Ellie is like a hardhead, so she doesn't forgive him. But, you know, he does agree to help them in the end, which I thought was good character development for that character. Now, obviously, I talked about Gail and like how she was a standout. You have a scene between Gail and Tommy, where Tommy basically talks about how basically I inherited the responsibility of Ellie. Because basically you're kind of seeing that Tommy's kind of playing that kind of uncle role for Ellie. And like how he talks about how he doesn't want Ellie to turn out like Joel. And I like how Gail goes like, Joel did not turn her this way. That path was probably just right. I think she's something that path was probably just right beside her the entire time. So I thought that was a nice little interaction between them. Now, this is where the episode kind of goes down for me. I've talked about positives with this episode. Here's where things kind of go downhill for me is this. So Ellie is there. She's getting prepared. You know, she's got her stuff. Like, Dina, like, notices all that. Just like, okay, I'm coming. And she says, I'm coming with you, right? And stuff like that. In which then the old man that I talked about gives them gear, gives them food, all that stuff. And then they sneak off. Which this is where things get interesting, where I don't like. They ended up making the change of not having Tommy being the one to go after Abby's group first. Because in the game, obviously you know that Tommy goes after Abby and her group, in which Mary, whatever the fuck her name is, but like either way, she goes to Ellie and Dina and says like, he is gone. Like she left a letter saying he's going after them. In which she sends Ellie and Dina after Tommy, right? To hopefully rescue him. And so there's that. I thought that works as like Tommy wants revenge. He wants to kill these motherfuckers. But no, they ended up having Ellie and Dina just go straight up. And we don't even know what happens with Tommy in the end. Like, does he figure out? I mean, don't get me wrong. Either Tommy does go after Ellie and Dina, like, but I do feel like he should have been the first one to go after them. Like it's his brother. We've seen how close they are. So that was quite disappointing that they made that decision. I wish that was a change they should have made. Like they have made good changes throughout the series. That one was not one of them. And of course, basically they've been changing Tommy a lot actually for The Last of Us Part 2. Like obviously Tommy was not the one that Joel confesses to. They basically replaced that with Gale and Joel. Tommy does not go with Joel, which I thought was the right decision, but I know some people will disagree, but I thought it was a good move. But Tommy doesn't go with Joel when Abby kills Joel. They have Dina go with him, and then Tommy stays behind defending Jackson. So yeah, the changes they're making to Tommy, like, some of them I'm okay with. The ones we did this episode, I'm not happy. Like, I'm not the happiest about it. Don't get me wrong. We don't definitively know what happens to Tommy, because after that, after that scene between Gale and Tommy, we don't see him again. So for all we know, he probably did go off on his own, and then next episode we realize that we see that Ellie and Dina run into him on the way, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" Like, "What are you doing here?" Maybe have an interaction like that. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Another thing I don't like about this episode is this. I was not fond of... Okay, so you're on this revenge trip, and yet Ellie just seems like Ellie from season 1. They're like joking around, making all these stupid puns, like... Now, I believe that moment when Dina starts asking about, like, how was I as a kisser, I believe that was meant to be the scene in Last of Us Part 2, the game, where they get high, which obviously was a current controversial scene. Nobody liked that scene. Thankfully, they took it out of this series, right? But I guess they kind of had to incorporate that interaction in some way. And even then, I wasn't fond of it. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I wish there was more seriousness towards Ellie just wanting to go for like, Ellie should have had more of the attitude, I'm not fucking around. I am just focused on what I want to do, and that is to kill these motherfuckers. I didn't really get that vibe. So that really bothered me. I felt like it just was a little cartoonish in a way, what they were doing in the end. Probably people disagree, but that was just me. I just wish they kind of toned down those little interactions between Dina and Ellie, and just focused more on them. And really Dina too, like, because Dina loved Joel as well. Like, we had that moment earlier, like I mentioned. Dina too, I said, you weren't the only one that loved him. So there's that. Oh, but before they leave, actually, let me talk about this one moment. One more positive thing. Ellie visiting Joel's grave, and then her dropping the little coffee beans on his grave. Yeah, no, that was very well handled. I love that scene. The cinematography was beautiful. Everything, like the camera shots and everything. It all worked very well. I love that scene. But yeah, basically the last half of the episode is basically what killed it for me, if you will, because, like, obviously I wasn't really a fan of those interactions. Like, don't get me wrong, like, them finding the dead bodies was a pretty intense moment. I liked it, but, like, still, I do think they should tone down those little moments between Ellie and Dina, and just, like, kind of, they should have been taking things more seriously. That's what I'm saying. Like, Ellie should have had more of the vibe, I'm not here to fuck around. I'm here. Like, I know, like, I'm determined. And you don't really get that. So that bothered me quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, like I said, this is actually easily one of my least favorite episodes of the series. It's not a terrible episode. I don't think the episode's bad. I like the episode overall. It's just that, then again, basically every episode of The Last of Us holds a very high standard. Like, I have not hated a single episode of The Last of Us, which tells you how great this series is. Season 1 did not have a single bad episode. I mean, the worst episode out of that season, I mean, I think people probably will agree, is probably the Left Behind, episode, which obviously, that episode was meant to be, dedicated to the DLC from the game. Like, that's considered, I guess, the worst episode, but even then, that episode's very damn good. Alright, like, learning about Ellie's past and what happened to her, how she got infected, was fantastic, actually. I thought that episode was great. But the fact that that's the worst episode, for the longest time, that was probably the worst episode the series had, just says a lot about how fucking amazing the series is. And so now we have this episode, and it's like, I don't think the episode's horrible. Like, I think overall, I would say it's a pretty good episode. But I guess I'm just disappointed considering that this series did raise the standards in terms of the episodes. we'll just have to wait and see what happens throughout the rest of this season. I'm very curious. Like, let's put it this way: the fact that I've lasted this long compared to the game, you know, is amazing. Like, I do think this series handled Last of Us Part Two overall very well. So we'll just have to wait and see what the rest of the season has to offer. I have heard that basically this season only meant to cover half of the second game. So I'm guessing season 3 will cap off the game. So we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, we are getting more episodes with Joel, obviously because of the flashbacks. So we still have flashbacks to see. So we'll have to just wait and see how they handle those. And well, I can't wait. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed this video. And if you do, please hit that like button. And if you want to show your support, hit that subscribe button. Well, thank you very much, and I will see you next week for episode 4.